And now to an exclusive Ingraham investigation. Now, as far as I'm concerned, the entire impeachment drama comes back to one person, the whistleblower. Democrats want you to believe this person is all of a sudden as unimportant to their case against the president.
We don't even need the whistleblower's original complaint. It's all there, clear as day, in the transcript and in these text messages.
Given that we already have the call record, we don't need the whistleblower who wasn't on the call to tell us what took place during the call.
But tonight, the Ingraham angle obtained exclusive documents that show just how important he or she is. Now, we got our hands on a batch of State Department emails from May of last year. The chain centers on a request from the New York Times reporter Ken Vogel. Now, you might remember he's the former Politico reporter who wrote this story about Ukrainian efforts to hobble Trump's presidential run in 2016. Oh, but that's just a conspiracy theory, right? Well, fast forward to May of 2019. Vogel sends an email to State Department official Kate Schilling about a story he was working on regarding an Obama-era meeting with Ukrainian prosecutors. In his request, Vogel mentions a name who some have reported is the whistleblower. Now, we have not yet confirmed this name, so we're just blacking it out for here. Now, Vogel's email reads as follows. We're going to report that State Department official Elizabeth Zentos attended a meeting at the White House on January 19, 2016, with Ukrainian prosecutors and embassy officials. The subjects discussed included efforts within the United States government to support prosecutions in Ukraine and the United Kingdom of Burisma Holdings and concerns that Hunter Biden's position with the company could complicate such efforts. On May 1st, State Department official Kate Schilling forwarded Vogel's email to her colleagues Elizabeth Zentos and George Kent. Now, remember him? He was one of the House Democrats' all-star impeachment witnesses. Now, according to Schilling's email, Kent has previously been a source for Vogel. Oh, I wonder how many times. I was thinking about that today, but I digress. Now, follow-up emails reveal the conversation ending on May 3rd when the State Department eventually just declined to comment. We at the Ingraham Angle were, however, able to corroborate details of the January 2016 meeting. However, we did this, of course, using archived Obama White House visitor logs. They're not going to tell us. We have to go to the logs. You can see them on the screen now. They show that the person who many believe to be the whistleblower checked in numerous Ukrainian officials into the White House on January 19, 2016, the day Vogel claims there was a meeting on Burisma and Biden. Also at the meeting were Ukraine's lead anti-corruption prosecutor and the head of the country's anti-corruption bureau, both of whom were there to discuss the complications of Hunter Biden's sweetheart gig. So what happened to that New York Times story about the 2016 meeting? Pretty hot, don't you think? Well, it was never published. We asked Ken Vogel, the reporter, why nothing ever came of it, but he didn't respond. The New York Times director of communications did, however, also refusing to answer our questions about why the story never ran, instead noting that Vogel's request for comment was just consistent with their news-gathering process. Got it. Nothing to see here. The timing of the request and the subsequent squashing of the story are very interesting. Now, let me explain why. Biden announced his candidacy on April 25th, 2019. The exchanges we laid out here in this segment occurred the following week. So now we have some questions. Number one, why wasn't the whistleblower concerned about Joe Biden overseeing Ukraine policy while his son was cashing in? Was it only troubling when Trump himself tried to get this thing investigated, this entire unsavory deal? Number two, why didn't this story ever run? Did Biden's team manage to put it down? Fearing blowback from his son Hunter's dirty dealings, maybe? There's a reason Adam Schiff and now Chuck Schumer fume, as they did tonight, over the very idea of Hunter Biden testifying. They know in their heart of hearts that Ukrainian corruption reached back all the way to the Obama administration, and they did nothing. His testimony would also force the Democrats to admit that their 2020 frontrunner oversaw U.S. policy in Ukraine while his own son was bilking their system for $50K a month. We need more documentation on this. We want all the emails, all the text messages. We want to see exactly what was happening inside that State Department last year and then in the White House in January 2016, when these meetings were taking place and when the effort to kind of respond to this New York Times reporter was playing out. There's a lot more to uncover, and we hope that maybe some of our friends in the media will actually start thinking this is as big a story as it is. Joining me now is Kim Strassel, Wall Street Journal editorial board member, and Lee Smith, investigative journalist and author of The Plot Against the President. Kim, you say these revelations get to the heart of the Democrats' impeachment arguments. Explain.
Yeah, they're immensely important because the heart of that argument is that Donald Trump acted corruptly in asking about Biden and Burisma. And you heard Adam Schiff today say, oh, of 1,000 companies out there, he asked about this one. Well, in fact, the White House has consistently made the claim that the broad question of corruption was a legitimate one. And if we now have evidence that the Obama administration was holding meetings about this, look, we already know Burisma was not just mom and pop corner shop store. This was a company that was started by a brainchild of the former Ukrainian president, run by a prominent former Ukrainian official, on the radar screen of international law enforcement, and had solicited prominent American political figures to sit on its board. It was a big deal, and therefore it does raise the question of how legitimate a target it was to ask about.
Lee, I'm looking at this email. This is from Elizabeth Zentos from the State Department to Kate Schilling, George Kent, who, of course, is one of the star witnesses. And the subject was Ukraine, Mykola Zlochevsky, because the head of Burisma Holdings, and U.S. government anti-corruption efforts. Hi, Kate. Thanks very much for the info. At this point, I think it's best that I not respond. Although let me know if EUR, the European desk, thinks differently. Thanks very much. Best, Liz. They were scrambling.
Right.
They were scrambling on this. Ken Vogel was hot on this story until he was not. I want to know why he stopped. How big is this?
I think it's an enormous story. I think we're not just finding out what's behind the impeachment, what's the pushback on that. We're also getting back to different sources of this insane Russiagate operation that actually began around that time. Congressman Devin Nunes has said it begins around early 2016, late 2015. This is one of the sources of it, and we see it's in the White House.
Kim, when you look at this visitor log, all Ukrainian names, individuals from the Ukrainian government, now the reporter saying we're looking into this meeting where Hunter Biden was discussed, is a potential conflict of interest with the vice president overseeing this policy. They're the names right there. The head of the anti-corruption unit in the Ukraine, in Kiev. This is a story that you would think a reporter like Ken Vogel, who, he's a pretty serious reporter, would have been on like a dog on a bone. And we get this response from the New York Times tonight, basically saying, "Oh, it just shows our news gathering prowess." Kim.
Well, this was a story that most reporters were on like a dog on a bone, right up until the point in which Democrats decided to make it into an impeachment issue. You go back and you mentioned that Ken Vogel story where he talked about Ukrainians' efforts to interfere in the 2016 election. We had endless numbers of stories from media reporters about Biden and his conflict and the problems that the Obama administration was facing with it. Stories about Amos Hochstein, the former Obama energy czar, who went to Biden aides and said, this looks like a conflict, and went to Biden himself. These are people that within the administration, as you said, there seemed to be some real concern and some real scrambling. It's only now that it's gone down the memory hole because no one wants to talk about it. They just want to talk about Donald Trump.
Right. When we see the visitee name, who logged them in, who checked them in other words, who called the meeting, and the person who's listed, we're not going to use his name, but a lot of people believe is the whistleblower. I'll show you, Lee. See the name? You can see it right there. So, Lee, when you